High in the hills of Vermont, the key of the greatest financial undertaking in the history of the world. Neighbors come to the home of Norman Rockwell to pose for posters for the second war bond drive. Posing are great Americans, great in the simple fact that they are just folks.
After the experience in Arlington, he certainly wanted to live in a small town. He certainly didn't want to move back to the city. My father used to say that he felt everybody should move at least every 20 years, you know, just to stir themselves up. So whether or not he was justifying what he did or actually making a intelligent comment on moving, I don't know.
When she told me that Norman was leaving town, that Norman and Mary were going, my mother said something like this: I don't think we as a town knew who we had with us. And to me, it was always a mark of who Norman was, that he never, ever pushed himself upon the people. He just became one of us, and the people became one with him, doing the art with him. And you know, I think it was one of those remarkable things that can happen in a small village.
In the summer of 1953, I was on the staff at Philmont Scout Ranch, and the following morning, Monday morning at breakfast, me and maybe 3 or 4 other of the staff were at a table, and my boss, Stan Mate, came across the room to me and said, Bob, I want to talk to you. And so I thought I had been caught shooting birds and I was going to be in trouble. We walked across the room and we were at another table. There was a man sitting there, and Mr. Mate said, this is Norman Rockwell. And after we talked a little bit, he said, would you like to pose for me? And I was so happy not to be caught that I said, I'd be happy to pose. I can remember him saying, this is an off to college theme. And so you're supposed to be a ranch boy who's going to go off to the big city, to the university, and it's your first time away from home. I remember they had a lot of dialogue about what I was supposed to look like and how I was supposed to kind of be excited about going off to college. So it was really a directed pose because, as I say, I'd never posed for anything before in my life.
I had always looked forward to a Norman Rockwell cover, and somehow I felt that he brought people and places to life. And I distinctly remember the post where they had Breaking Home Ties. You know, in 1954, I looked at that painting and said, yeah, I'm going to go away someday. I'm going to go away to school and learn how to draw. And so that painting has a special meaning for me. And I think every painting that I ever saw of Norman's gave me that sense of wanting to find that America.
Well, Rockwell loved Stockbridge. He moved to Stockbridge, Massachusetts in 1953 from Arlington, Vermont, and enjoyed the same sort of small New England community where he could enjoy meeting his neighbors, get to know his neighbors, select his models from people he would meet on the street or see from his studio, which initially was above the coffee shop in town.
At the time, Norman had his studio up over the grocery store there, and our department store was right there next to the library. And so he said to my husband, do you think your father would be willing to pose for me? He said, when I was up in Arlington, frequently when a couple had been married a long time and separated, to give them something new to think about, I've asked them to model. So Mr. Rockwell wanted him to come just as he was. He always wore armbands and the vest and white socks. So anyway, when this came out, people would make comments to Dad Brayman about it, and Dad would say, do you want me to autograph your copy?
I didn't know him as well as I did Mary, his wife. I used to run away from home and go visit Mary. And he would pop in from time to time, and I would say hi, and he would say hi. When I modeled for him, it was in town. He would have a photographer there. He would pose us, let us know if we're doing it right or wrong, or you know, he's very particular about what he wanted. Especially one time when I was modeling for the circus, which is one of the mass mutuals that he did. I was about 5 years old, and I was sitting there very prissy and, you know, just the way I was taught to sit, and trying to envision a circus was difficult at that age. So what he did was he took the popcorn that I was holding, which incidentally was stale, and he threw it all over us, and that's where he got the expression that he wanted from all of us.
He'd say, "Oh, Claire, I want you to fold your hands. I want you to raise your arm. Would you please stand up?" And so forth and so on, different angles and all. And you kind of wonder, whoa, what's this all about, And he loved being a joker. He would make faces jump from behind the canvas, and actually make a face at you or something, and you thought the man was out of his mind. But he would get the expression that he was looking for.
He was very much a director, and he got very involved in just exactly how he wanted you to look. He liked to put, things, hidden little jokes in his paintings. Like this one going Easter morning. If you see the father crunch down, he made his hair with two little horns sticking up.
He was a very fun man to work for. He was full of ideas. He would send me out with a Polaroid camera to go look for models. First he would describe what he was looking for, and I would come back with Polaroid pictures, and if he'd okay him, then we'd set up a photo session. But of course this was created a lot of problems, because a lot of my friends that posed for me for the Polaroid pictures, some of them went around telling people they were going to pose for Norman. A lot of times it wasn't so.
Mr. Rockwell and I were neighbors in Stockbridge, and he was aware that I was a state police officer. And he called me on the phone and said that he had an idea for a post cover, and I'd be willing to pose for him.
Periodically, Mr. Rockwell would come to our grade school during lunch, and we were all sitting there having lunch, and he would come with the principal, and he would kind of walk back and forth, and then he would select certain students that he wanted to see. All I know is that I was scared, because the principal came and got me out of the lunchroom, so I didn't know what I had done or what kind of trouble I was in, but that's how he did it.
I can't tell you where he got the idea for the Runaway, but the original posing we did for the Runaway was done at Howard Johnson's, which is on the Pittsfield Lennox Road. So when the appointed day and hour came, we went to the Howard Johnson's, and we met there. And at his direction, we sat in various poses, and he had photographs taken, and he basically worked from photographs.
I do remember I got to turn the siren on in the state police cruiser. That was the highlight of the day, and of course I got out of school early. I can only say, as you're growing up, you don't realize how important the image is to certain people. I know I told this to Dick that. The state police, I've gotten to know some state policemen who find that to be a very important symbol to them. The idea that that's what they do. They help people, and if you're in trouble, they're there to help. And I think that's an important image that, that carries on forever and ever.
He had many letters with suggestions, ideas. He called them his idea letters. He certainly was appreciative of all the ideas that were sent to him. And sometimes he felt maybe they sparked his thoughts to come up with something. Beyond doing the fan mail letters, he was collaborating at that time with his son Tom to do his autobiography.
They were going to do a book of my father's pictures, so they sent a professional ghostwriter up from New York, but my father didn't feel that he could really open up to this man who was there. So he got the idea that I would do it. I was then working for a magazine in New York. So we started it, and he went on so much and had so many wonderful stories to tell that then we made that into what is now the autobiography, a whole book. As I remember, it was very well accepted. He was very pleased when the Post accepted it, and that's when he did the triple self-portrait for the cover of the first part. But, it was a sort of diversion. What he was really still all about was painting.